Hi, my name's Rachel McLeod, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I want to talk to you about one mental block that stops you from fully getting rid of symptoms of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress. So, and I want to talk about this because it's I've been running into it more frequently. It's always been here, um, but I've been running into it a little bit more, and so I want to talk about it. So this mental block, I'm just going to come out with this here, is that people say to me, my brain wants to start telling you stories already. Okay, I'm just going to say it here. They say to me, I already worked through that. It's already done. I already worked through that. Oh, I spent a year working through that. Oh yeah, with my last therapist, already worked through that. And what that issue is either a memory, they've already worked through a memory, they've already worked through a hurtful event, they've already worked through a relationship issue, like maybe with a parent or one of their exes or a best friend, or just any issue whatsoever. But I've already worked on that. And this is the problem I see with that is that what I, if from I track brains, right? And I listen to the brain say the work it wants to do. And I help the brain do that work. That's my entire specialty is to help the brain do the brain work that the brain wants to do. Because if the brain gets what it wants, you get to have what you want. And your brain is actually trying to help you get what you want. So this is my feeling on that. And I have an itch up here, so I have to itch that. Okay. The deal is this, from how I see it, is we don't tell the brain when it's finished with something. It tells us when it's finished with something. And it has multiple ways of telling us that. And it has multiple ways of telling us, hey, I'd like to work on that again. Can we work on that? Right? And if you're saying, no, we already did that, we're done. Keep moving. You're setting yourself up for limitations, blocks, more symptoms because that's what brains give you when they haven't been able to work through it like they want to. Now, does this mean that all the work you've done before means it's nothing? No, actually, um, all the work you do on this is very, very helpful. And so I want to address that first. I have this stuff in order, but I'm going to jump off the path. The brain, when it wants to work on something again, sometimes that can mean a couple of things. One, it can mean that the process wasn't complete the first time. A lot of times this happens when we're using talk therapy strategies where we get to talk about it, we get to think about it with our therapist, we get to read about it in books, we get to do the prefrontal cortex work on it, we get to understand what happened. Um, that is all good and fine, but that doesn't mean your body got to release the stored emotion. It doesn't mean that your survival system thinks that it's resolved. And it doesn't mean that your subconscious mind was able to complete the subconscious mind's work. Okay. And so that is one of the ways I see the most frequent thing I see in why symptoms don't get fully resolved, and it's because people, when they talk about it, they think that that's working on something, and where that's a layer of working on something, we need to check with your body, your survival system, and your subconscious mind. Hey, is there anything else in there? And a lot of times I really combine that by having people either talk about it or attention it with an intervention. And when we do that, we can, if they can talk about it, many people can't talk about traumatic events. But if you've tried the talking route, then you're actually one of the people that can talk about traumatic events, and you actually may have gotten some desensitization through that. So now you can actually talk about the event without crying and breaking down, which is progress. But when you're talking about it, if you're using an intervention, what you're doing there is you're pulling the survival system out of the healing pathways. And so you're opening up the healing process, and all the information your body has about that event or that trauma, that issue or that relationship can actually come up from from all of you and get into the front of the brain where transformation happens, where healing happens, where cohesion happens, where your body isn't a problem solving center. It doesn't solve its problems. It sends information. It sends the information it wants solved to the part of the brain that solves problems. Now, your survival system's job is to keep pain away from us and away from our conscious awareness because it'll knock us out and it's very painful. So it's working on doing that. And so when the body starts sending emotion that registers as very painful, your survival system will get in there and shut it down. Nope, we're not doing that. We're done with that. Pack back up. It's not coming through here. Put it back wherever you found it. So maybe it might be a sensation in your chest, right? So it has to go back and stay there. Doesn't get to release. Doesn't get that information, that data doesn't get to move through to the part of the brain that can actually solve that problem for you for good, permanently, you know? So it's really important that we work with the survival system there so the body can send those painful messages through. These interventions, I like to, I teach people interventions. I teach people emotional freedom techniques, thought-filled therapy, energy medicine, and EMDR. I teach them how to do this for themselves, and I guide them along the way. So I like these interventions because not only do they influence, they're speaking to your survival system in its native language, the body, messages from the body, right? You're tapping on here, or maybe you're moving your eyes back and forth. You're using the body's way of communicating with your survival system intentionally, specifically, and targetedly to actually create healing, intentionally walking your brain through its healing process, right? You got an issue back here, it's a memory, and you want to make sure it gets fully through the healing process. Maybe your body is sending up all this information about what's so bad about that memory, what's not resolved. Your body's like, I'll tell you, and maybe it's a pain in your chest, right? So we're going to take that pain through your chest and move it through the brain's healing process so we can make sure it gets past the survival system and it gets into the part of the brain that can actually create healing and transformation and change and can actually release the pain, release the parts that are not going to help you anymore. And actually, what that part of the brain does is create new ways of being for you that are stronger and healthier and more intelligent and more skillful. It weaves all of the things it's got up there in the center right there. It weaves all of that into the solution, your goals, your desires, your morals, your values, um, the outcomes you want to create. It knows that it's up there, right? It's working on that. And that's what happens every time we get this information from your body into into the part of the brain, healing happens, right? So that's a huge big deal. Also, same thing with your subconscious mind. Just because you know something doesn't mean your subconscious mind was able to complete its processes. It's not a problem solving place. And so it will know you have things that need to be processed, and it knows it's like, oh, this thing I got back here doesn't work for us anymore, and it was part of that traumatic event. I need to get this thing out of here. So it is trying to bring that stuff up. Survival system says, no, that's too much pain. Sorry. And there's a block right there. So we use an intervention there, pull that out of the way. And all of a sudden your subconscious mind is able to get that brain trash, it's subconscious brain trash that's stored in there, and it moves it through. And so we want to make sure the parts of you get their work done. And the part that blocks that is the survival system. And its native language is not talking and thinking. So, but when we can get that part cooperating with the healing process, because we want it to respond to pain, right? It's the same function that happens when you touch a hot pot and that's burning you and you just let go without thinking about it. That's your survival system. We don't want to change that, and we're not going to change that. I mean, I don't know that we're going to change that. It doesn't look it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Plus, it's been why we are still here, right? So, but we want to. It's blocking too many things in this moment. Pain is not just pain. Some pain is like good pain, right? The part of the healing process, like when you go work out and you're burning muscles, right? That's actually the good piece, but that most of us want to avoid, right? So we do that by making smaller chunks of workouts. Anyway, um, but we can do that with our healing process too. We can actually make the pain less, which is really wonderful because I'm not saying if it's painful, it's good. No, when we're talking about healing these wounds, less pain is more gain. So we want to use interventions to improve this process, to reduce the pain levels. And so I'm coming back here um, to the point of we want to help your brain do its work. And just because you want to be done, one part of you is done with this, we need to make sure all parts of you are in agreement. Okay. And so that's so just completing a project, that's one thing. Another thing that could be why your brain wants to revisit something and it keeps going back. I'm going to talk about signs that your brain wants to still wants to return to work on something again in just a moment here. But we're talking about why your brain would want to revisit memories that you've already worked on. Okay. Sometimes it wants to do deeper healing, right? Sometimes, let's say you worked on something that happened 5 years ago, and in 5 years ago, you were working on this. Okay, let me set this up a little differently. Let's say you want to work on a childhood memory, right? It was a painful memory. And 5 years ago, you worked with somebody and you guys rocked that out. It created so much transformation for you and healing. And you are like, did that, check, done, right? But now it's what happens is, okay, that was 5 years ago. And you made a lot of progress and you got a lot of healing and you've grown a lot in your maturity between now and 5 years, right? So now sometimes your brain's like, ooh, we have more now than we had 5 years ago. I wonder how all this applies to that childhood memory. Let's go back there and see. And so it goes back and starts bringing up that childhood memory again because it wants to apply all the things you've learned now to that memory. It has a knowing that if it can do that, it has a hunch. It's always right, but it has a hunch that if we can get back there and do this work, we can make this even better. So I would go with that. I would support your brain in doing that. Also, these are yours. These are these experiences you had in your childhood. They're yours. They're not going away. And there will be different times when you will relate to them differently, or that your brain needs to create a higher function with it. Like, and that's one of the signs that it's like, that's one of its hunches. It's like, if I could just get back in there in that memory, I bet I could do this, and then it would just help us even more. And so those are some of the reasons why your brains like to revisit past memories that you've already worked on, past relationships that you've already worked on. Okay. Now, let's talk about signs that your brain is sending you, ways that you can recognize that your brain wants to work on something again. Okay. Um, if you start having flashbacks about a specific memory, a specific relationship, it's starting to intrude in uninvited, it just starts showing up. A relationship or a memory event. If it starts coming into your awareness, it's there for a reason. And that usually is like, it belongs in here somewhere, but I can't really figure that out, but I'd like to. So, and it will just sit right there in your awareness for however long and go back. I notice as I do this work, because I do this, I want my brain to be awesome too. Now, when I have a flashback, it's very faint. You'll almost miss it if you're not looking for it. And I do often dismiss it. Okay. It usually takes me about 3 times. I'm like, how? Because I'll just catch a little image of it. And I'm like, what? And I'm whatever, keep moving, keep moving. It'll come up again. And then I just like, I'm not quite, and then it'll come up again. And I'm like, hey, hold up. I've seen this a couple times. And then I'll go pull it up. There's strategies for working with flashbacks to help your brain do the work in the flashback that it wants to do. So I'll go do one of those interventions, one of those strategies, and I can see, wow, oh, you wanted to do that, and it's all these connections that my brain want to do, and the releasing new things I'm releasing, and it's like, good job, brain. Now, if you've got a post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Your flashbacks are massively uh, interfering with your daily function, right? The flashbacks are a brain process that's really, really good, but when it really can't get the work done, and that work is so important to your life, those flashbacks come in and just hang out, and they can grab your nervous system and do all kinds of things with you. So um, that's this is a great strategy to use for that level of intensity as well. But since we're talking about, I have a video for that, how to get rid of any flashback. Watch that one. But I'm going to stay on track because many of you have already done that first layer. And I want to talk with you about, hey, these are ways you could see it coming back. Like, hey, let's go revisit that. All right. If you start having dreams where you can the event or the relationship is starting to come up, that's your subconscious mind working on memories or issues while you're sleeping. That's actually its job, and it really will stay out of your awareness if it doesn't need help. If you're starting to dream about it and you're definitely having nightmares about it, that's a sign that there's potential, there's additional healing available there that your brain knows and is trying to get to, is trying to complete it. So you can pull alongside you, behind your brain or beside your brain, and say, oh, I see what you're trying to work on here. Let's use an intervention. Let's use a strategy. Here we go. Let's go. And you can walk your brain through healing the material that's in the dream into your healing pathways, because it needs to come up from your subconscious, past your survival system, into the part of the brain that can review everything, analyze it. Oh, look, we don't need this anymore. We don't need this anymore. Oh, that was good for a while, but no. Oh, this is good. We're going to keep that. And it goes through its whole sorting process and leaves you with the stuff that's great, and then reorganizes that issue and puts it into your subconscious program at a higher function, higher use to you, right? Sometimes it packs in joy in that, this was so depressing before. Let's put where's some joy? Let's grab some of our joy or excitement in there. And now that is a package that goes back into your survival system, your subconscious mind, in the programming. And when it runs next time, it'll come out joy, happiness, right? Higher function every time that's run, as opposed to before where it didn't have as high of functioning. Right? So this is very, very valuable. And if you've done a lot of healing work, your brain may be doing most of this itself. Great. And be on the lookout for these things that it's time to do another round of work in those issues that you think you've completed. Okay. You will also notice fantasies about some of these issues. If you're fantasizing about going back and smacking the person, your brain is actually trying to release some emotional issues like anger, rage, hurt, lack of fairness, right? Unfair. It's telling you, I got some more in there I need to release. Let me show you this. Oh, yeah. And you're in there watching the movie of you beating that person up, slapping them. Our brains are wild places. I don't judge them. So, whatever thing that you're doing with them. And that's your subconscious mind is sending you the messages. There's still more work here. And if you don't want to have your subconscious mind actually drive the bus and from the back of your brain and actually drive you over there to slap this person, or emotionally slap this person, or do whatever it is you're going to do in your fantasy, you want to get that subconscious, that messaging that, hey, okay, hold up, subconscious, I hear that there's still some anger in here. Where is that? Let's get that through the healing pathways, right? Anger only comes up because it's a secondary emotion. There's underneath it is usually hurt, powerlessness, or fear. We don't want that hanging out in the back of your brain. We want that moving forward. We want that up here in the front of the brain. That part of the brain converts fear into hope and courage. Okay? So fear is not necessarily a bad thing if it gets to the right part of the brain. If it doesn't get to the right part of the brain, it doesn't get that conversion process, you're going to have fear responses that are not going to be in alignment with who you are. And then you're like, oh my gosh, my monster. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. That was not my best move. Yeah, that's because that stuff is in the back. We want it to move to the front. Anger. rage, frustration. Brains take that and make assertiveness and kindness. You're going to need that for your boundaries. You're going to need that. Anger tells you all kinds of things about yourself, what you like, what you don't like. That's construction material for your healthy boundaries. Your brain can make your healthy boundaries for you if you do help it with this process. And you won't even have to think too much about, what's my healthy boundary? Your brain is already like, I got you. Just go do it. We got you. That's the good stuff. You'll also know that your brain wants to revisit issues if you have certain cycles in your life that you're just not resolving, that they just keep coming back again, and you're like, I am so done with this. Why am I still doing this? These can be things like emotional eating challenges, specific behaviors that you're done with. I had one, gosh, okay, I'm gonna tell you personal. Um, I was so on romance novels, specifically in the time period of in England in like the 1400s, okay, or 1500s. I don't know, 1420, right? 1466. I could not get enough of those books, and I was kind of on the outside, like, okay, what's up, Rachel? I ended up doing a session with an energy worker in my community. I was trialing her out because it was new. I was afraid of them. What are these crazy, you know, energy people going to do to me? Anyway, I went there. We were working on a specific issue, and after, and it was okay. I'm gonna tell you more. Sometimes I like to not share how much I walk out on the wild side with my brain, because and other brains, but um, I I do past life regression work because I started it because of this woman. Okay. Confessions. I started because of this woman and this result that I got and how fascinated I was. But why I continued doing it and how I made the leap over there was um, I was looking for ways, and this was all happening unconsciously. I now understand what was happening, but and then I was just kind of just doing things. But I was looking for ways to get brains to tell me the story of the problem. And a lot of times that you can't get the story right here. And so if you can try different strategies. Well, can you tell me the story this way? Can you tell me the story that way? What about like this, right? And so when I started pitching the brain opportunities, tell me the story in this lifetime from this lifetime. Um, all of a sudden, it was just like all this information would come out, and we'd use an intervention all over that stuff, and then problems would resolve, right? I can go on and on about that. And now that I've put myself out there, the coming out of Rachel, I will. Okay. But I'm going to just tell you. So I'm working with her, this energy worker. She's got a past life of mine up, and guess what? It's in the 1400s. And we're doing all this work with it, which was very little work. She's very quiet and just, no, she's not quiet. She's very peaceful and doesn't do it. She doesn't do, I have people pretty busy with their brains. She's a lot less, um, I think she's very precise, right? She does what she does, and that's what she does. It's great. Anywho, we're in there. We work through that very easily. And I go home, and within the week, I'm looking for another book to read. And I just go through the motions, and I'm pulling up romance novels, right? And I'm looking for my 1400. And all of a sudden, I'm like, this is dumb. I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I just can't. Why am I doing this? And it occurred to me, it was like, oh, whatever issue that I was dealing with the 1400s, all of a sudden, I don't need it anymore. Done. Pattern over. I just thought that was my personality, right? No, there was an unresolved issue in there. And once I resolved that, I really was done with that. And so there's so many things like that. And really there's some when I have a client that has um uh I keep a very open slate because I want the brain to tell me what the issue is. I don't want to assume what the issue is, because we're talking about this associations each individual brain has made, and where I can have some hunches, I find that's a waste of time because the brain will just tell you, and I don't like to get my hunches involved with the brain's communication. So let's say I have a client. Let me see if I want to tell, I'm going to make one up, okay, because I don't want to put anyone's business out there. Let's say there's a client has a specific emotional eating challenge that they just had for years, the candy, perfect, that they just find that they're always eating this specific candy, right? When we look at this, right, there's brain tricks where we can get the brain to tell us what the deal is. And so every time, let's say that we're focusing on this, that we focus on the last time they had a candy episode. And what we find is that their stomach aches right before. And so we can figure out what that, and then we'll ask the brain, well, what's up with this stomach ache right here? Because right now the body is saying, I have information, or as we review it, we're finding that there's something about this that leads to this eating. So we're trailing back to the source of what's this eating thing about, right? So we're going in and we're asking questions right here in the stomach. What's up? And so the stomach is sending information to the prefrontal cortex, because I'm so glad you asked. This is a problem and you need to know. And so we're going to use interventions right here because it's pain in the body. So your survival system's probably, and it's been there for a while because you've had this candy eating thing for a long time. So that tells me that this has not made it through your brain's healing pathways yet, this stomach problem. So we're going to focus on that, use the interventions, and get it through the healing pathways, right? That starts opening this stomach issue up because now it's getting in there and now there's more going on. And so all of a sudden we realize that, well, now it's bearable, right? So it's less intense. We can focus on this and have your brain bring up the first memory this ever has occurred. Okay, so we can use a mind trick for that. So now your brain tells us this specific memory, right? And you're like, I've already worked on that. I want to work on that memory again. Sorry, your brain said this is where the problem is, and this is where we need to do the work. I don't make the rules. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. Your brain makes the rules. So if you say, I'm not doing it, then you keep the stomach problem. I'm not doing it because I've already done it before. You keep the stomach problem. I didn't invent that. Your brain brought up the memory. so, so when this happens, it's just time to work on. We're going to leave the stomach problem here, and we're going to go to the memory that was just brought up, and we're going to work through the memory, and we're going to clear any emotional distress we can find. And there are tricks for that, and we can really pull out and do a good, thorough search. I teach all of this stuff in my program, so you can you can get that access or talk with your therapist about this. Okay, it's a thing. It's very easy to learn. So so we're going to resolve all of this issue, and we're going to come back to your stomach. Either now your stomach will totally be like, gone, or there'll be a couple of other issues. And then those issues are pretty easy to resolve. We'll resolve those too and get that whole stomach problem, that clenching stomach problem, out. When I do this with clients, I would then, when that they can no longer find any more of this distress, I will send them, and I'll do some tricks like, hey, I want you to imagine this situation again and just think how awesome this food would be, right? Because now I'm testing, how's your stomach going to respond to this? Is your stomach going to say, yeah, eat the food? Is it going to make you, right? Because this distress can really become compulsion energy. Like your brain is feeling the pain of this, and so it's shifting you into survival mode to get you away from the pain, which it's learned if it can make you eat the candy, then it'll shut the pain off, right? So we're working on breaking that loop. And if we work on that early memory where your brain has led us, we resolve the issues of the stomach, we're breaking the loop. That's what we're expecting to find. So this is when I then, after we can no longer find any more distress, we cannot find that stomach problem anywhere, and I will look high and low, and I will use all my brain tricks to look high and low. And we don't find it, then it's time to go live life and go try it out in real time. And what I will find is that the clients tell me they either have no more craving for the candy, they will not eat the candy anymore. They don't even want it. Or they'll find that it's much less often. And a lot of times that's residual work. We'll just go and figure out in that moment what's going on there. And we'll follow the same process and we'll clear out that candy eating episode everywhere it shows up. And so that's one example of how you can find that your brain wants to go back and work on something. That it got a lot of healing done, but not quite yet in this one area. This one, it's like, I don't have a great example for this, but I explain it like a Rubik's Cube. Like, if you can have some things in some pretty good picture, like you're like, okay, I've almost got all the colors on each side, right? But I need to make a couple of moves. Every time life hands you a couple of moves, it like turns it and it looks out of picture. But when it gets out of picture, out of focus, out of color, out of order, maybe, all this emotion will pull out through it. And this somatic distress, your body will be able to release new things from there. And our job is just to pull it through the healing pathways. Because it's like, I couldn't get it from any other way, but from this way, when this new thing happened, I got that final clearing out of there, or I got another clearing out. And then, you keep moving them and then they go back and they're more in order than they've ever been. And so that's a lot of times what I see there. So if there are cycles in your life that you want to be done with but aren't, a lot of times it's time to revisit old memories. Or memories that you've already worked on. And this also is true if there's areas in your life where there's just not the progress you want to see. I find this happens for me specifically as my kids outgrow my current programming for them, right? Like for instance, it's like when you have a toddler crawling, you can have a pretty orderly house. You're like, okay, I've got this place baby safe. And then all of a sudden they stand up and they can reach higher and you're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even think about that. I didn't think about this. Oh my, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Right. And I call that moment, like your brain will then, I don't call this, your brain will then do a lot of work to reorganize yourself so that you can meet the challenges that this new growth and development caused. And that means your brain will go through your learning stages, right? So you're learning that the baby can reach this high and grab that thing that's not safe, right? And so that process is the same process brains use to get rid of symptoms and of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress. In there, if you're not able to do that process, there's a glitch in your healing process, in your learning process. And we can look at these areas of your life where you're not as mature as you want to be. Like when you have, let me tell you, a maturity place is between 11 and 15. I'm sure you could be more precise, but from what I understand, I had a major learning curve between, actually it was 13 and 14 years old, my kid went through. And I was like, I don't have it for this. I need to get it for this. I used a lot of interventions here. And guess what? I found a lot of childhood issues, right? I needed to open up my childhood stuff so I could get growth and resolve some generational patterns of dysfunction. I had to do all this work under the hood, very deeply, stuff I had already done. But now I was like getting new insights because I'm just like, oh. And then I was able to come to speed with my 15-year-old, my 14-year-old then, right? And keep it moving. And I expect to have to go through that as they leave the house and, all the things that they do, like children just mature you. And if your maturation learning process is not functioning well, they start outgrowing you. And that is so painful. It's very painful and it's not necessary. Your brain really can create your ability to keep up with them, keep ahead of them even, and really be a great leader for them, a great support, a great somebody they can bounce off of, right? a really healthy dynamic. That's just one area, but that is a lot of times where it's important to revisit, and your brain will take you to the exact issues, relationships, memories that you need to resolve to do that. So if you're avoiding anything, that's a great place that you can find like habitual patterns of avoiding, but that's a great place where you'll find old issues coming up that where you can work through those and create more healing. Um, this one is kind of tricky. When people say, no, I've done that already, I am like, that means you haven't. The more emotional energy coming under that statement and fueling that statement, the more I'm like, I'm sorry. I hear distress in there. And because that's your survival system saying, nope, we're not doing it. Nope. And that means it would be painful if we did. We'll get lost. We'll re traumatize ourselves. We're not going there. That means that there's still unwellness in there. There's still lack of resolution in that piece, that there's still potential for growth. The growth material is still in there and it's not making its way through. We need to go back there and get that and pull it through. And in a very painless way. I don't want to re traumatize you either. And we want to do this work without re traumatizing you. Very, very important. Um, the other thing, and I talked about this just a bit ago, but the other indication that your brain still wants to work on something is somatic distress in your body. And that means pain in your body that is related to emotional distress, your body's expression of emotion. And the body speaks in pleasure and pain. That's its language. And so if you've got pleasure going on in your body, like whatever, any kind of that, like relaxation, all those things, good. Stay out of there. It doesn't need your help. It's doing the awesome things. But when it's sharing pain, that's when it needs some support. And that's a lot of times we can have you focus in on that and find everything we need right there. Your brain can take us to the original memory if there's a memory. If it's a belief that's stuck in your body, we can get that belief out of there. If it's just old emotion like shame, then we can clear that out of there. Whatever your body needs, and it has its own. We don't even need to know what it's doing. Sometimes I classify these things because sometimes things are very complex and the brains like to order things. And so while you're back here with something like garbled up and complex, you can say, okay, let's focus on supporting the shame move through. Not you, anger. You're going to stay here. Go ahead, shame. Right? That can be really helpful in organizing things so it's not all rushing up to the front at the same time. Right? Or maybe you're going to say, okay, only this part of the memory you're going to go through, not you. You stay back. This part's going through. So those are some advanced strategies that you can learn and to help so that you can get in there and really help out your brain like at the level that it needs help with. But even if you haven't, and on your journey, just basic skills, you can stand out here and just point and shoot interventions out there and you'll get a lot of healing as well. So but any somatic distress can be signs that there's old issues that need they're flashes that say it could be an old memory. It could be one that you thought was finished already. And so I really want you to understand that there's this statement of I already worked through that really can make you miss your healing opportunities. And then you're going around doing all this other work, you're looking for other things, but when it's just really you've overlooked what it really is. And so it can really be simple. And if you've already worked on there, it's going to be less difficult. It's not going to be a whole thing. But let me tell you, if you've spent decades like I've already did that and you're running around over here, you're kind of going through your house looking under everything, right? And so you can actually make your place that could be clean a really big mess. And then you're like, I'll fix it in a second. I just got to find this thing. And it wasn't any of those things. It was where you didn't want to go. It was where it was, and your brain would have taken you there simply if you just would have listened to it. If you would have allowed it to take you there, it would have taken you there. And if the more avoidance you have for going in there is more indication that your survival system has already determined that this is not safe. And that means you'll have subconscious programming keeping you away from it, which could be the program of, I already did that, I'm not going there again. That can just be a survival strategy that has turned into something that you actually believe and that you're running. It can, and that can serve as a massive mental block. So I think you're following and picking up what I'm putting down. I want to invite you to ask any questions right now. I'm going to say a couple more things. I'm going to get a little drink here. Okay. So I want to say a couple things. I focus on getting rid of symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, um, and creating wellness and resolving disorders. But the deal is that from a brain function issue, any goal or aspiration you want to achieve, and you're not yet doing that, it's then your problem solving process or your um, healing process or your solution creation process is impaired if it's been going on for a while. And so the symptoms of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress are really indications of exactly where the glitch in your programming is. The glitch in your system that's blocking you from reaching your goal, that's where it is. So I don't just help people get rid of symptoms and disorders. I also help them resolve patterns of codependence, addiction, emotional eating, inner critic, um, self doubt, feeling like I wrote some things down, feeling like a fraud, establishing healthy boundaries, restoring relationships, solving intimacy issues, um, like really applicable life things. But I focus on the where the glitches in your system are that make it so that you can't achieve whatever it is you want to achieve and be well, live well, and thrive. And so these symptoms, whether it's racing thoughts or freezing or fainting or fawning or um, your heart racing, these are all indications. Ooh, right there, there's a piece. Let's help your brain, whatever's in there. Let's help your brain resolve that, and then you can move through. And you're helping your brain resolve a glitch in its system. And so once that glitch is resolved, then it can actually start resolving things around there for you, right? And when we're finding where does that inner critic show up? Oh, okay, wait, over here. Okay, let's get in there and resolve that glitch. Why is that happening, right? Um, and heal that. And then all of a sudden, your inner critic is showing up less. And actually, I'm going to have to do a live on this, but I saw somebody said, slay your inner critic. No, okay, I'm sorry, you can. Don't slay your inner critic. Heal her or him. Heal them. Uh, Inner criticism is a sign, it's post traumatic stress, and it's a sign that there's emotional wounding on the inside somewhere. We can actually take that inner criticism and go find the exact location of the emotional wounds and heal that. And once that's healed, your inner critic becomes healthier and part of your inner guidance system. It is your inner guidance system, but it's wounded. It only can only function like that within its capacity. And if it's wounded, it's not going to be so fabulous. So these problems in your life really can open things up and create massive transformation for you, massive healing. And sometimes brains are just blocked in just one area. You undo this and the whole problem falls apart. And especially if you'll notice that happening more if you don't have an anxiety, depression, or trauma disorder. If you do have one, there's still more work to do. So you're in there working, we're resolving, and then you'll see, oh, okay. And then we get back in there and resolve, resolve. And then, So any of these issues, these are issues I help people resolve. If these are things that you would like my help with, or you would like to use my curriculum with, I have made those available on my website. Just reach out to me and let me know you're interested, and you can send me a message or on my Facebook page, on my website. There are very specific instructions on how to do that. I've left links about those programs in the comments, in the header. And so you have links there that are available for you. And then I've also made this available as a self-study option, each strategy to walk your brain through what it needs, whether it needs to resolve a disorder, right? I break everything down so that your brain can do it in very small pieces and unravel that. Or and then we get more and more advanced skills so that you can tackle any area of your life and use the symptoms showing up to help your brain resolve glitches and really create wellness and function. And this program is designed to help you reach those goals and open the doors of healing in 2 to 6 months. And that includes ending disorders in 2 to 6 months. So it's really, really powerful and a phenomenal way to heal, especially if you're somebody who wants to do the healing work without, independently, like you're a do-it-yourselfer. It's a really great guideline. Or if you're somebody that wants to stay with your therapist, but they don't do this specific work, but they're very supportive, this is great for that because you do this, you're at home and work with them and really maximize your healing. And also, like I said, if you want me to walk you through this process of transforming your inner world and creating function and reaching your dreams and goals, then look at the 8-week intensive. That's what that's there for. So, okay. Oh, one thumb. I'm not seeing anything else on there. So, yeah, you can find all of that on rachelmccloud.com. That's RACHELLEMCCLOUD.com. And so that's there, and specific links are in there. And that's it. So I hope this inspires you to listen to your brain and not to just write off stuff because you've already worked with it. You've already done it. Um, yeah, trust your brain in the process. And if you need support, get it. Right? It's kind of scary working in there. It's scary working with traumatic events or with places in our brain we don't want to go. But if we get the right support and the right strategies, we can really safely and without a lot of pain open those areas up and heal. And that is really, I can't tell you, I wish I could figure out how to use the words for this. Um, but I can't tell you how many of your current challenges are because of these issues. And even just resolving one of them, one deep root issue can really open your life up tremendously. And that doesn't have to take a long time at all. So that's it for me. So I hope you're inspired to just follow your brain and do the healing work that it's asking you to do. And learn how to listen to your brain, learn how to support it, learn how to use interventions to really get those wheels rolling and help your brain accomplish the healing work that it's been trying to do. So I will talk to you all later. Be well, and I'll see you soon.